Thank you. We are very glad to be here with you today to talk to you about our innovative research and about how we study change. So now it's quite late in the afternoon. I can see some tired faces. So let's get some energy, right? So can you please stand up again? We just copy you. Great. So today we are talking about change, and so we would like to start with you actually. So now, please sit down if you don't like change. Please sit down if you don't like change. Some few of you, okay, but still a lot of you standing, so you like change. That's great. It makes things more difficult now. So now, please sit down if you, in front of change, are usually very confident, relaxed, and don't feel any particular fear or doubt or uncertainty. Okay. So, half of you down, half of you still standing, so you know that change can be difficult. But finally, let me ask you to please sit down if you, despite all these challenges, have managed to change, have you like it? So if you like to change, please sit down. Okay, that's great. Most of you. So as you can now all sit down. So you were very honest, which is always good. So as you just showed me, change can be difficult. And definitely it cannot be avoided. It's part of our life, right? And guess what? This is of course even more true in Africa.
Thank you, Roberto, for setting up the energy in the room. So I won't ask you to sit down and stand up again because it would be too much in a short time. But I will call out to your imagination. So I would like you to imagine to be a patient with a lifelong threatening condition. So you have this rare disease that has defined your life, what you can do, what you cannot do. And at a certain point of your life, you are offered the opportunity to start a new treatment full of promises that in a way will redefine who you are. How do you feel? Excited? Scared? I guess this is who you are, and you would find a new way of coping with life, which would be great, everybody says. So this, in a way, is the challenge that we wanted to overcome. We wanted, so I work at Roche, and our motto at Roche is like doing now what patients need next. And after long discussions, and when it comes like to launching product, we really think, so what do really patients need next? We need to understand who our patients are first. And in order to do that, we designed a market research that is patient-centric by design. And what we wanted to get out of it is really mainly a full and comprehensive picture of the stories of our patients, get learnings that could be universally applied to wider populations of patients, and as well as like get elements and insights to fine-tune our strategies as we go. That sounds great, right? Easier said than done. Of course, we faced many challenges. And first of all, like when we talk about like a rare condition, we naturally know we are talking about a very small population of patients. And when it comes to recruiting for market research, that has been very difficult. In fact, I have to congratulate like my partners in this research, Elma, which did an amazing job, like really creating the trust, which was like our natural second point, stepping out in a new disease area, like really connecting as a new player that is coming to stay and really committed to the patient. And another challenge we faced, as we always do in life, is just like a mix of complicating factors due to risk that we cannot control. For instance, like local approvals, or how we could actually get the buy-in both internally and externally.
Okay, so now, in front of all these challenges, we could have adopted a safe and traditional approach. But we know that sometimes the tried and tested path doesn't take you to a new truth. That's what we needed. So right now, I would like to run a little bit another test with you. So the task is going to be quite easy. I would like to show you a video, which many of you actually may have seen already. If you have seen it, please don't spoil it, okay? But if you have not seen it, that's great, because help you that you're going to have fun, and you will end up the conference with an additional piece of information. You can also test your friends and family back home. So, the task is very easy. Please count how many times people wearing white pass the ball. Okay, so please keep the answer for yourself and stand up again, please. Everybody back on their feet. Okay, so the answer was 16, exactly. I'm not going to give you any prize for that. That was way too easy. We're all researchers here. We do love numbers, right? At least quantities helps. But there was something else going on in the video. So now, please sit down if you have not seen the gorilla. If you have not seen the gorilla, please sit down. Okay, so about half of you. Exactly, don't worry, if you have not seen it for the first time, research says that about half of the people missed the gorilla for the first time. But actually there was something else going on. Have you noticed the curtains changing color in the background? So now, if you have not noticed the curtains changing color, please sit down. Oh, great. That was more particular. Okay, and finally, it's not finished. There was something else, and please sit down now if you have not seen the player wearing black leaving the game.
I'm cheating, I've seen it.
One, two of you, that's great, well done. So it's really incredible how many details can come and notice. Well, don't believe me, we can watch the video again very quickly. It was very evident. And of course the curtains, then the player leaving the game. So it's really striking how we often see but don't look. And this of course can be a challenge because we risk losing sight of important piece of information in our research.
I'm one of those who missed the gorilla, by the way. So, I mean, this for me really reflects the reality of healthcare and the scenario we're playing in when we think about micro-research. So, when we first contacted Elma and thought about a partnership in patient first experience research, we really thought about how we could step up our game and have different methodologies that would allow us to zoom in into the personal life of patients, what we dub here as augmented reality, and as well as like having multiple lenses, so gaining different perspectives of the insights that we could use along the way to feed the research at later stages as well. And of course, like given the extent of the research touching different countries, we needed to personalize the approach to make it a win-win for everybody.
Okay, so I know what many of you might have been asking themselves. What was the adopted solution, right? Is the answer. So we designed a multi-phase, longitudinal, qualitative approach aimed at understanding the full journey of patients with a new treatment. And the word full here was very important to us because we really wanted to witness the entire journey from the switching to the new treatment, but actually also the moment before. And so we ran this piece of research in US, UK, Germany, in Italy, and in each of those countries we ran these 3 steps that I will now take in turn. So as a first step, we access patients' real life, their individual stories, their baggage of emotions, feelings, hopes, but also doubts and negatives that might come with the idea of switching. So do you remember the exercise at the beginning? We precisely wanted to get to that moment. And we chose ethnographic research to do so. So now this phase was really key because it worked as the backdrop to map out and understand all the following phases and changes. So we definitely didn't want to lose such a wealth of information, of insights. So we visit patients and caregivers together with a professional video maker. We are used to doing so, and we do that very tactfully. And I have to say that, especially in this instance, we found really great openness from patients and their family. As a second phase, we set up a digital patient community involving the same patients and caregiver that attended also the ethnographic phase, plus others. And here the aim was really to maintain a live contact with them throughout the period, the first 3 months with the new treatment. Instead of doing that retrospectively, as is often the case, we decided to do that prospectively and longitudinally, covering especially 3 moments in their journey. The first moment, of course, the switch, and also the decision-making process that has led to that switch. The second moment, very important, was the first experience with the new treatment. And finally, we started to look at changes incurred 3 months into the new treatment, with also foresight into how their life was concretely changing, also starting to predict how is likely to change in the future, now factoring also new hopes, new expectations. So the way we did that, as you can imagine, was through a fully customized digital platform where patients were invited to interact with us in sort of weekly activities that also the client would access. So now keeping them engaged was absolutely key, and the moderators really had a special role to it. And at the end, really no patient dropped out.
Last but not least, to complement the patient view, we decided to interview physicians, especially nurses, and patient associations. So this really allowed us to cross-match across like sensitive topics. How was really the conversation like among the different stakeholders? So this is, for example, what a patient in the online community said. And now a mom from the US. So these are simply quotes, but in the extent of our research, played a major role in keeping people engaged and also keep everybody familiar with the life of the patients. In fact, like here, this is an example of few outputs we had from the research. Was like we had weekly newsletters from the online community. So the online community was set up like with weekly tasks and discussions where patients engaged on, and we rolled it out within Roche, everybody involved in the therapeutic area. Then we created a poster where everybody was introduced to the methodology of the research, and it really generated a lot of questions also like on how we could apply these insights in other therapeutic areas. And something unique about the research itself is like being a very long research, we needed to find different ways to keep people engaged and motivated. And something we agreed upon was like no slide decks and of data of readouts or presentations. We literally put together like a bunch of people in the room from global and local in different functions, and we workshop. We used best team thinking in light of the tactics we want to develop, thanks to the insights. And finally, I will give you a taste of one of the outputs that we also shared internally. With the quotes, we put a QR code so everybody had access to the video, and I'll leave the words to the patient. It's impressive to hear directly from them, right? So in fact, like, the beauty of this methodology was really like to allow everybody working in the therapeutic area to listen from them. What does it mean? Of course, this is only like a snapshot, just to show you the value of the methodology. I guess you are also wondering, so what did you do with the outputs from this research? We actually identified the areas where we could actually improve and decided not to focus only on the product itself, but on looking at the window of sweet journey of the patient, where we could facilitate also other stakeholders to make patient experience better. For instance, we worked a lot on messaging in order to help physicians' conversation to be more actual and more relatable for the patients, fine-tuning the language that was used previously. Or helped centers to deploy ad hoc services for the patients. But most importantly, we learned 4 things from this research. 5, because I can't. Okay, good. So, switching is definitely a delicate moment, but not only for the patient, also for us in terms of understanding where we could actually play a major role. Working together is crucial, and we brought a lot today, the theme of collaboration, co-creation, but it's very true. It's something that we keep bringing up to the table because nobody alone could really make it, and we really needed the expertise in terms of methodology and the connection with somebody who could bring the patients we needed together and give us the insights needed. But also, internally, we collaborated a lot with different affiliates because they hold the reality of local markets. So we had an idea of what we wanted, but we needed to customize it to really bring the maximum value of this research for everybody. And most importantly, working in a rare disease space, sometimes we are always scared of recruitment and sampling. I think this research really showed us that it's not the case. Sometimes, with a very well-done research, even a small sample of patients can give us powerful insights that could be deployed universally. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes, we just have to remember to keep people engaged during the research, after, and find maybe innovative ways to disseminate insights, but this is our job, we have been doing it, and probably just keep doing it the way we did with more emphasis. My key take-home message for today is really if we want to be patient-centric, we have to start from the patient and listening to them. After that, we can then think about the entire ecosystem. And I wouldn't focus only on the product. I talked to everybody here doing research in pre-launch. But focus on the patient experience, their story, their life, because only then we can understand what their change will be in the future. Because needs are, unlike anything else that we've seen, are subject to change. And with a good research and a good approach, we are able to identify them and improve patient experience.
Yes, thank you. And from a market research agency standpoint, if we really want to help our client deliver beyond the pill, if we really want to keep sight of all the important elements, so the gorilla, the carton changing color, and even the players living the game, it's really important that we do the following 3 things. First of all, embrace multifaceted programs that cover multiple influence points in a journey in an ecosystem. That's important because that way we can unlock new insights and we can become more strategic. A second thing that we can do more often is experimenting with new and best practice ways of doing research. this would allow us really to go beyond describing the here and now, or sometimes even the past, and instead start to predict the future, what patient really needs next. So now, qualitative longitudinal research can take time, we know that, but it's worth it. And finally, let's be ready to deal with ambiguity and start to create value that otherwise we wouldn't have created. As Mo just mentioned, even no sample size is too small actually. Even a small size can deliver big impact with the right research question. What's important is to be flexible and to have like an adapting approach that adapts itself along the research path.
Only this we can drive change through insight from the patient for the patient.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Love it. Any questions? Anybody? You talked, Roberto, about, you know, it's worth it. It's not a short piece of research. How long did it take from start to finish?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, it took several months. Also because time was dependent also on different time approval in different countries. So having said that, the process was quite smooth. Of course, so we had challenges in order to prove materials, but by kicking off country after country, really the client could have access to the data quite soon, also because they could access the community as we've seen, and also we deliver like bi-weekly newsletter so that all the teams were constantly updated.
And how did it go with getting all the stakeholders together and keeping them, you know, obviously with the weekly newsletters, but how did that process go?
I have to say, at first, a lot of excitement, then silence. Because like, this is what happens when you actually try to bring something new in a sensitive population of patients with the new methodology. But I mean, the value of our research speaks for itself. We only had like to probably message the value very well at the very beginning to bring everybody aligned. But the way we did it was like quite different. So this time we really involved different functions. So everybody could ask their questions about what they would like to know from the patient. So there was a piece of it for everybody in this research. And that made it easier later on.
Microphones.
Congratulations. The first thing is a beautiful piece of research, so it's really very nice. It's complicated with that kind of data that comes in very different shapes and sizes, and some of it presumably a bit of quality, a bit of textual data, behavioral, visual, all sorts of things. How do you analyze that? And especially in the context of choosing to report on a weekly basis, when in fact the story can change a bit retrospectively when you go further down the journey. So how do you analyze that wealth of very different data and given, you know, the weekly requirement of reporting?
Okay. So a word that I would use to describe that is flexibility. So we already had a dedicated team to work on that, constantly monitoring the community, for example, and analyze. So if you manage the community day by day, it's really then easier maybe to come up with a strong analysis earlier, because you really are in touch with patients day by day. You also met them before, like in the ethnographic interview, what we did our moderators. So everything was very, very organic, and also when it came to communicate the results through the newsletter to the client, here we really wanted to be really. We follow like the principle of immediacy. We wanted to give them really the authentic words from patients, and then we had other moments throughout the journey where we could start to strategize things, because we also had a planning workshop, I said earlier, with local countries. So I guess that we deliver really flexible deliverables, and each deliverable had a special, different role on that.
Amir, did you have a question?
Yes.
Give the microphone down the front, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed and Roberto. I really enjoyed it. It was a very insightful presentation. I'm already a fan of communities and patient experiences, but the question I have is, did you find there was a certain profile of patient that wanted to join in that research, and what can you share in terms of how to be more representative in the type of patients that we recruit for these type of studies?
Okay, so yeah, so the patient population was very rare. So, and then in that case, then every individual was different from each other. We really worked a lot with physicians. In some countries, we also brought in psychologists really to help us to start the conversation with patients and start also the recruitment. So, yeah, I think that at the end, we had a very varied profile of patients.
Okay, we have time for another question. It's really hard to see with these lights.
Sorry, hi. Really quick question. So, could we understand why you would want to do this prospectively and why you want to get an idea of the patient's life before the treatment change? But how do you recruit a patient with the idea that eventually they will go on and have a treatment change? How do you filter out the patients?
Through the physicians. So, like, physicians have their regular catch-ups with their patients, and they will tell us afterwards, well, Elma, they will tell Elma if they have patients that are eligible for the treatment, or if the patient proactively brought the conversation to their table, and then they followed up from there.
Okay, so these are patients who were recruited with the idea that eventually the physician thought they would move on to this drug.
Yeah, that was an additional element of challenge, because it could have been the case that some patient didn't actually switch at the end. And we have a couple of cases of that. But yeah, through physician, we could really understand with the right patient, so patient that already started to be open to the switching.
Okay, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much, Mohamed.
Thank you.